The Copa Libertadores de América is an annual international club football competition organized by CONMEBOL since 1960. It is one of the most prestigious tournaments in the world and the most prestigious club competition in South American football. The tournament is named in honor of the Libertadores, the main leaders of the South American Wars of Independence, so a literal translation of its name into English would be Liberators of America Cup. It is currently sponsored by Bridgestone and thus currently known as the Copa Bridgestone Libertadores for sponsorship reasons. The competition has had several different formats over its lifetime. Initially, only the champions of the South American leagues participated. In 1966, the runners-up of the South American leagues began to join. In 1998, Mexican teams were invited to compete, contesting regularly since the 2000 edition, when the tournament was expanded from 20 to 32 teams. Today at least 3 clubs per country compete in the tournament, while Argentina and Brazil each have 5 clubs participating. Traditionally, a group stage has always been used, but the number of teams per group has varied several times. In the present format, the tournament consists of 6 stages, with the first stage taking place in early February. The 6 surviving teams from the first stage join 26 teams in the second stage, in which there are 8 groups consisting of 4 teams each. The 8 group winners and 8 runners-up enter the final 4 stages, better known as the knockout stages, which ends with the finals anywhere between June and August. The winner of the Copa Libertadores becomes eligible to play in 2 extra tournaments, the FIFA Club World Cup and the Recopa Sudamericana. Argentine Club Independiente is the most successful club in the cup history, having won the tournament 7 times. Argentine clubs have accumulated the most victories with 22 wins, while Brazil has the largest number of different winning teams, with a total of 10 clubs having won the title. The cup has been won by 24 different clubs, 12 of which have won the title more than once, and won consecutively by 6 clubs, most recently by Boca Juniors in 2001. The reigning champion of the competition were Brazilian side Atlético Mineiro, who won their first title after beating Olimpia of Paraguay. History. The clashes for the Copa Rio de la Plata between the champions of Argentina and Uruguay kindled the idea of a continental competition in the 1930s. In 1948, the South American Championship of Champions, the most direct precursor to the Copa Libertadores, was played and organized by Chilean club Colo-Colo after years of planning and organization. Held in Santiago, it brought together the champions of each nation's top national leagues. The tournament was won by Vasco da Gama of Brazil. However, it was not until 1958 when the basis and format of the competition was created, thanks to the efforts of P+or-Roll's board leaders. On March 5, 1959, at the 24th South American Congress held in Buenos Aires, the competition was approved by the International Affairs Committee. In 1966, it was named in honor of the heroes of South American liberation, such as José Copyright Gervasio Artigas, Bernardo O'Higgins, José Copyright de San Marta N., Pedro I., and Simaque den Bolivar, among others. Beginnings, 1960–1969, the first edition of the Copa Libertadores took place during in 1960. 7 teams participated: Bahia of Brazil, Jorge Wilstermann of Bolivia, Millonarios of Colombia, Olimpia of Paraguay, P+or-Roll of Uruguay, San Lorenzo of Argentina and Universidad de Chile. The first Copa Libertadores match took place on April 19, 1960. It was won by P+or-Roll, who defeated Jorge Wilstermann 7-1. The first goal in Copa Libertadores history was scored by Carlos Borges of P+or-Roll. The Uruguayans won the first ever edition, defeating Olimpia in the finals, and successfully defended the title in 1961. It proved to be historic justice for many due to P+or-Roll's great contributions to the creation of the tournament, but the Copa Libertadores did not receive international attention until its 3rd edition, which was swept through the sublime football of a Santos team led by Pelé Copyright, considered by some the best club team of all times. Os Santos Ticos, also known as O Bala Copyright Branco, which dazzled the world during that time, won the title of 1962, defeating the defending champion P+or- in the finals. A year later, O'Reilly and his compatriot Coutinho demonstrated their skills again in the form of tricks, dribbles, back heels, and goals, including 2 in the second leg of the final at La Bombonera, to subdue Boca Juniors to a Euro-1 and keep the trophy again. Argentine football finally inscribed their name on the winners list in 1964 when Independiente became the champion after disposing of the powerful title holders Santos and Uruguayan side Nacional in the finals. Independiente successfully defend the title in 1965. P+or- would defeat River Plate in a playoff to win their third title, and Racing would go on to claim the spoils in 1967. The next biggest highlight of the competition, after Peel Santos, did not happen until 1968 with the introduction of Estudiantes de La Plata. Estudiantes de La Plata, a modest neighborhood club and a denominated minor team in Argentina, had a style that prioritized athletic preparation and achieving results at all costs. Led by coach Osvaldo Zubeldia and a team built around figures such as Carlos Bilardo, Oscar Malbernet and Juan Rama Cubden, went on to become the first ever tricampeón of the competition. The Pincaratas won their first title in 1968 by defeating Palmeiras. They successfully defended the title in 1969 and 1970 against Nacional and P+or- respectively. Although P+or- was the first club to win 3 titles, Estudiantes had done this feat consecutively. Argentine decade, 1970 Euro 1979. The 1970s were dominated by Argentine clubs, with the exception of 3 editions. In a rematch of the 1969 finals, Nacional emerged as the champions of the 1971 tournament after overcoming an Estudiantes squad depleted of key players that helped lift it to its recent glory. With 2 titles already in its showcase, Independiente created a winning mystique which was prolongated by Francisco Sá, Jose Copyright Omar Pastoriza, Ricardo Bochini and Daniel Bertoni, pillars of the titles of 1972, 1973, 1974, and 1975. Their tetracampeonato has been a feat only achieved this once. Independiente's home stadium, La Doble Visera, became one of the most dreaded venues for visiting teams to play at. The first of these titles came in the 1972 edition when Independiente faced off against Universitario de Deportes of Peru in the finals. Universitario became the first team from the Pacific Coast to reach the finals after eliminating Uruguayan giants P+or- and defending champion Nacional at the semi-final stage. The first leg in Lima ended on a 0-0 tie, while the second leg in Avellaneda finished 2-1 favoring the home team. Independiente successfully defended the title a year later against Colo-Colo after winning the playoff match 2-1. Los Diablos Rojos kept the trophy again in 1974 after defeating Sao Paulo 1-0 in a hard-fought playoff. In 1975, Unión Cubden Plus+or- also failed to dethrone the champion in the finals after losing the playoff 2-0. The reign of Los Diablos Rojos finally ended in 1976 when they were defeated by fellow Argentine club River Plate in the second phase in a dramatic playoff for a place in the finals for their second time in history. However, in the finals River Plate themselves would be beaten by Cruzeiro of Brazil as the title returned to a Brazilian club after 13 years. After having the trophy elude them in 1963 at the hands of Pela Copyright S. Santos, Boca Juniors finally managed to appear on the continental football map. Towards the end of the decade, the Xenizers reached a finals on 3 consecutive years. The first was in 1977 in which Boca Juniors earned their first victory against defending champion Cruzeiro. After both teams won their home legs 1-0, a playoff at a neutral venue was chosen to break the tie. The playoff match finished in a tense 0-0 tie and was defined in a penalty shootout. Boca Juniors won the trophy again in 1978 after thumping Deportivo Cali of Colombia 4-0 in the second leg of the finals. In the following year, it looked as if Boca Juniors would also achieve a triple championship, only to have Olimpia end that dream after a highly volatile, second leg match in Buenos Aires. Just like in 1963, Boca Juniors had to watch as the visiting team lifted the Copa Libertadores in their home ground, and Olimpia became the first team from Paraguay to do so. Pacific emergence and last Uruguayan triumphs, 1980 Euro 1989, 9 years after their first triumph, Nacional won their second cup in 1980 after overcoming Internacional. Despite Brazil's strong status as a football power in South America, 1981 marked only the fourth title for Brazilian clubs. Flamengo, led by stars such as Zico, Junior, Leandro, Adalio, Nunes, Claudio Adapaundo, Tita and Carpegiani, sparkled as the Menga Pando's golden generation reached the pinnacle of their careers by beating Cobreloa of Chile. After 16 years of near-continuous failures, P+or- would go on to win the cup, for their fourth time, in 1982 after beating the 1981 finalists in consecutive series. First, the Manias disposed of defending champion Flamengo 1-0 in the last match of the second phase at Flamengo's home ground, the famed Estadio do Maracanã. Then in the final, they repeated the doses on Cobreloa, winning a decisive second-leg match 1-0 in Santiago. Grêmio of Porto Alegre made history by defeating P+or- to become the champion in 1983. In 1984, Independiente won their seventh cup, a record that stands today, after defeating title holders Grêmio, which included an incredible 1-0 win in the first away leg highlighting Jorge Burruchaga and a veteran Ricardo Bochini. Another team rose from the Pacific as Cobreloa did. Colombian club Arma copyright Rica de Cali reached 3 consecutive finals in 1985, 1986 and 1987, but like Cobreloa they could not manage to win a single one. In 1985, Argentinos Juniors, a small club from the neighborhood of La Paternal and Buenos Aires, astonished South America as they eliminated title holders Independiente in La Doble Visera 2-1 during the last decisive match of the second round, for a place in the final. Argentinos Juniors went on to win an unprecedented title by beating America de Cali in the playoff match via a penalty shootout. After the frustrations of 1966 and 1976, River Plate reached a third final in 1986 and were crowned Cup champion for the first time ever after winning both legs of the final series against America de Cali, 2-1 at the Estadio Pascual Guerrero and 1-0 at Estadio Monumental Antonio Vespucio Liberty. P+or- won the cup again in 1987 after beating America de Cali 2-1 in the decisive playoff. It proved to be their last hurrah in the international scene, as Uruguayan football, in general, suffered a great decline at the end of the 1980s. The Manias' fierce rivals, Nacional, also won one last cup in 1988 before falling from the continental limelight. It was not until 1989 before a Pacific team finally broke the dominance of the established, Atlantic powers. Atlético Nacional of Medellín won the final series, becoming the first team from Colombia to win the tournament. In a tournament filled with controversial refereeing and circumstances, Atlético Nacional faced off against Olimpia, losing the first leg in Asuncia Cubden 2-0. Because Estadio Atanasio Girardot, their home stadium, did not have the minimum capacity CONMEBOL required to host a final, the second leg was played in Bogotá's El Campo N, with the match ending 2-0 in favor of Atlético Nacional. Having tied the series, Atlético Nacional became that year's champion after winning a penalty shootout which needed to go into 4 rounds of sudden death. Goalkeeper Reina copyright Hector cemented his legendary status with an outstanding performance as he stopped 4 of the 9 Paraguayan kicks and scored 1 himself. The 1989 edition also had another significant first. It was the first ever time that no club from Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil managed to reach the final. That trend would continue on until 1992. Renaissance, 1990 Euro 1999, having led Olimpia to the 1979 title as manager, Luis Cubilla returned to the club's bench in 1988. Around the legendary goalkeeper ever Hugo Almeida, Gabriel Gonzalez, Adriano Samaniego, and star Raul Vicente Amarilla, a rejuvenated Decano boasted an extremely formidable side that promised a return to the glory days of the late 1970s. After coming up short in 1989 against Atlético Nacional, Olimpia reached the 1990 Copa Libertadores finals after defeating the defending champion in a climactic semi-final series decided on penalties. In the finals, Olimpia defeated Barcelona of Ecuador 3-1 in aggregate in a relatively comfortable victory to win their second title. Olimpia will reach the 1991 Copa Libertadores finals afterwards, once again, defeating Atlético Nacional in the semi-finals and face Colo-Colo. Led by Yugoslavian coach Mirko Josia, the Chilean squad beat the defending champion 3-0, sparking an unforgettable party in the country that celebrated the conquest in the streets as well as ending Olimpia's second golden era. In 1992, Sao Paulo rose from being a mere great in Brazil to become an international powerhouse. The monumentally recognized manager Tele Santana turned to the Paulistas' youth and instilled his style of quick, cheerful, and decisive football. Led by stars such as Zeti, Marwan Cortalaere, Raw, Cafu, Palinha, Sao Paulo beat Newell's Old Boys of Argentina to begin a dynasty. In 1993 Sao Paulo successfully defended the title by thumping Universidad Católica of Chile in the finals. The Brazilian side became the first club since Boca Juniors in 1978 to win 2 consecutive Copa Libertadores. Like Boca Juniors, however, they would reach another final in 1994 only to have the penalty shootout, the instrument of their first victory, come back to haunt them as they lost the title to VAR copyright Les Sarsfield of Argentina. VAR copyright Les Sarsfield's concentration in the Copa Libertadores was considered an institutional victory, and it was Carlos Bianchi, a former VAR copyright Les player, that built a squad capable of playing on an equal footing on any terrain against any team. With a highly compact tactical lineup and the goals of the formidable duo Jardel and Paulo Nunes, Grêmio won the coveted trophy again in 1995 after beating an Atlético Nacional led, once again, by the iconic figure of Reina Copyright Hector. Jardel became the top scorer in this edition with the high mark of 12 goals. The team coached by Luis Felipe Scolari had some fundamental pillars as defender Adilson and the skillful midfielder Arilson. In the 1996 edition, figures such as Hernan N. Crespo, Martins Almeida and Enzo Francescoli helped River Plate secure its second title after defeating Arma Copyright Rica de Cali in a rematch of the 1986 final. The Copa Libertadores stayed on Brazilian soil for the remaining of the 1990s as Cruzeiro, Vasco da Gama and Palmeiras won the spoils. The Cup of 1997 clashed Cruzeiro and the Peruvian team Sporting Cristal. It was defined in the second leg of the final when Cruzeiro broke the deadlock with just under 15 minutes left in a match attended by over 106,000 spectators in the Mineiro Poundo. Vasco da Gama defeated Barcelona SC with ease to enter in the Gallery of Champions in 1998. The decade ended on a high note when Palmeiras and Deportivo Cali, both runners-up in the competition before, bid to become winners for the first time when the trophy, in 1999, was decided in a dramatic back-and-forth match that went into penalties. Luis Felipe Scolari managed to lead yet another club to victory as the Verde Pound won for €3 in Sao Paulo. This decade proved to be a major turning point in the history of the competition as the Copa Libertadores went through a great deal of growth and change. Having been long overshadowed by Argentina's clubs, the Brazilians began overshadowing their neighbors as they saw its clubs reach the final on 8 of this decade's 10 finals. From 1998 onwards, the Copa Libertadores was sponsored by Toyota and became known as the Copa Toyota Libertadores. That same year, Mexican clubs, although affiliated to CONCACAF, started taking part in the competition thanks to quotas obtained from the pre-Libertadores which pitted Mexican and Venezuelan clubs for 2 slots in the group stage. The tournament was expanded to 36 teams and economic incentives were introduced by an agreement between CONMEBOL and Toyota Motor Corporation. All the teams that advanced to the second stage of the tournament received $25,000 for their participation. Decade of resurgences, 2000 Euro 2009. During the 2000 Copa Libertadores, Boca Juniors returned to the top of the continent and raised the Copa Libertadores again after 22 years. Masterfully directed by Carlos Bianchi, the Viri, along with outstanding players like Mauricio Serna, Jorge Bermudez, Oscar Doba, Juan Roman Riquelme, and Marta N. Palermo, among others, revitalized the club to establish it among the world's best. The Xenizes started this legacy by defeating defending champion Palmeiras in the final series. Boca Juniors won the 2001 edition after, once again, defeating Palmeiras in the semi-finals and Cruz Azul in the final series to successfully defend the trophy. Cruz Azul became the first ever Mexican club to reach the final after great performances against River Plate and an inspired Rosario Central. Like their predecessors from the late 1970s, however, Boca Juniors, depleted of some of its figures, would fall short of winning 3 titles in a row. As with Juan Carlos Lorenzo's men, the Xenizes became frustrated as they were eliminated by Olimpia, this time during the quarter-finals. Led by World Cup winner-turned-manager Neri Pompeido, Olimpia would overcome Grêmio and surprise finalist São Caetano. Despite this triumph, Olimpia did not create the winning mystique of its past golden generations and went out of the 2003 edition, in the round of 16, after being routed by Grêmio 6-2, avenging their controversial loss from the year before. The 2003 tournament became an exceptional show as many teams such as Arma Copyright Rica de Cali, River Plate, Grêmio, Cobreloa, Racing, among others, brought their best sides and generations, and unexpected teams such as Independiente Medellín and Paysandu became revelations in what was, arguably, the best Copa Libertadores in history. The biggest news of the competition was previous champion Santos. Qualifying to the tournament as Brazilian champion, coached by Emerson Leopoldo and containing marvelous figures such as Renato, Alex, La Copyright Ricardo Oliveira, Diego, Robinho, and Elano, the Santos Ticos became a symbol of entertaining and cheerful football that resembled Pele Copyright's generation of the 1960s. Boca Juniors once again found talent in their ranks to fill the gap left by the very successful group of 2000 Euro 2001. Boca Juniors and Santos would eventually meet in a rematch of the 1963 final. Boca avenged the 1963 defeat, at the hands of Rey & Co., by defeating Santos in both legs of the finals. Carlos Bianchi won the cup a 4th time and became the most successful manager in the competition's history, and Boca Juniors hailed themselves pentacampeones. Boca Juniors reached their 4th final in 5 tournaments in 2004, but they were beaten by surprise outfit Once Caldas, ending Boca's dream generation. Once Caldas, using a very conservative and defensive style of football, became the second-ever Colombian side to win the competition after eliminating powerhouses such as Santos and São Paulo. Ruining their semi-final exit in 2004, São Paulo made an outstanding comeback in 2005 to contest the final with Atlético Paranaense. This became the first-ever Copa Libertadores finals to feature 2 teams from the same football association. The Tricolor won their 3rd crown after thrashing Atlético Paranaense in the final leg, making them South American champion. The 2006 tournament was also an all-Brazilian final and featured the defending champion São Paulo against Internacional. Led by team captain Fernando Paundo, the Colorados beat São Paulo 2-1 at Estadio do Morumbi and held the defending champions at a 2-2 draw at home in Porto Alegre as Internacional won their first ever title. Internacional's arch-rivals, Grêmio, surprised many as they reached the final in 2007 with a relative young squad. However, it was not to be as Boca Juniors, reinforced by aging but still capable players, came away with the trophy to win their 6th title in history at the hands of Juan Roman Riquelme. In 2008 the tournament stopped being sponsored by Toyota. Grupo Santander, one of the largest banks in the world, became the sponsor of the Copa Libertadores, thus, the name changed to Copa Santander Libertadores. In that season, LDU Quito became the first team from Ecuador to win the Copa Libertadores after defeating Fluminense 3-1 on penalties, with Jose Francisco Ceballos being a key player blocking 3 penalties in the final shootout in what is considered the best ever final series in the history of the competition. It is also the final with the most goals in the history of the tournament. The biggest resurgence of the decade happened in the 50th edition of the Copa Libertadores, and it was won by a former power that has reinvented itself. Estudiantes de La Plata, led by Juan Sebastián Veracruden, won their 4th title 39 long years after the successful generation of the 1960s. The Pincaratas brilliantly managed to emulate their predecessors by defeating Cruzeiro 2-1 on the return leg in Belo Horizonte. Brazilian dominance, 2010 Euro 2013. Since 2010, only Brazilian teams have been champions of the tournament, beginning with SC Internacional defeating Club Deportivo Guadalajara. In 2011, the champion was Santos FC, who beat P+or-Arol by 2-1 in the final. In 2012, Corinthians won the tournament undefeated, beating Boca Juniors 2-0 in the final. It was the first title in the competition since the club's foundation. In 2013, Atlético Mineiro needed to beat Olimpia 2-0 to take the match to penalties, and did so. Victor, the goalkeeper, performed miracles and secured the title for the club. It was the first title in the competition since the club's foundation. Format, qualification. As of 2009, most teams qualified to the Copa Libertadores by winning half-year tournaments called the Apertura and Clausura tournaments, or by finishing among the top teams in their championship. The countries that use this format are Argentina, Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, Paraguay and Venezuela. Peru and Ecuador have developed new formats for qualification to the Copa Libertadores involving several stages. Brazil is the only South American league to use a European League format instead of the Apertura and Clausura format. However, one berth for the Copa Libertadores can be won by winning the Copa do Brasil. Peru, Uruguay and Mexico used a second tournament to determine who qualifies to the Libertadores. Chile still uses a competition to determine a Copa Libertadores participant, the Liga para Copa Libertadores. Argentina used an analogous method only once in 1992. Starting in 2011, the winner of the Copa Sudamericana will qualify directly to the following Copa Libertadores. The first, second and final stages of the competition is currently contested by the following: the winners of the previous season's Copa Libertadores, that is, the title holder, are given an additional entry if they do not qualify for the tournament through their domestic performance. However, if the title holder qualify for the tournament through their domestic performance, an additional entry would be granted to the next eligible team, replacing the title holder. If the winners of the Copa Sudamericana do not qualify for the tournament through their domestic performance, this entry will come at the expense of the last-placed team of their association. Rules. Unlike most other competitions around the world, the Copa Libertadores historically did not use extra time, an additional period of play specified under the rules of a sport to bring a game to a decision and avoid declaring the match a tie or draw, or away goals, a method of breaking ties in football and other sports when teams play each other twice, once at each team's home ground, to decide a tie that was level on aggregate. From 1960 to 1987, two-legged ties were decided on points, without taking goal difference into consideration. If both teams were level on points after 2 legs, a third match would be played at a neutral site. Goal difference would only come into play if the third match was drawn. If the third match did not produce an immediate winner, a penalty shootout, a method used in football to decide which team progresses to the next stage of a tournament following a tied game via kicking penalty kicks, was used to determine a winner. From 1988 onwards, two-legged ties were decided on points, followed by goal difference, with an immediate penalty shootout if the tie was level on aggregate after full time of the second leg. Starting with the 2005 event, CONMEBOL began to use the away goals rule. In 2008, the finals became an exception to the away goals rule and employed extra time. From 1995 onwards, the 3 points for a win standard, a system adopted by FIFA in 1995 that places additional value on wins, was adopted in CONMEBOL, with teams now earning 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw and 0 points for a loss. Tournament. The current tournament features 38 clubs competing over a 6 to 8 month period. There are 3 stages, the first stage, the second stage and the knockout stage. The first stage pits a number of clubs, currently 12, in series of 2-legged knockout ties. The 6 survivors join 26 clubs in the second stage, in which they are divided into 8 groups of 4. The teams in each group play in a double round-robin format, with each team playing home and away games against each team in their group. The top 2 teams from each group are then drawn into the knockout stage, which consists of 2-legged knockout ties. From that point, the competition proceeds with 2-legged knockout ties to quarter-finals, semi-finals, and the finals. Between 1960 and 1987 the previous winners did not enter the competition until the semi-final stage, making it much easier to retain the cup. Between 1960 and 2004, the winner of the tournament participated for the now-defunct Intercontinental Cup or Toyota Cup, a football competition endorsed by UEFA and CONMEBOL, contested against the winners of the European Cup. Since then, the winner plays in the Club World Cup, an international football competition contested by the champion clubs from all 6 continental confederations. It is organized by the FA Copyright DAO Copyright Ration International de Football Association, the sport's global governing body. Because Europe and South America are considered the strongest centers of the sport, the champions of those continents enter directly into the semi-finals. The winning team also qualifies to play in the Recopa Sudamericana, a 2-legged final series against the winners of the Copa Sudamericana. Prizes, Trophy. The tournament shares its name with the trophy, also called the Copa Libertadores or simply La Copa, which is awarded to the Copa Libertadores winner. It was designed by Italian designer Alberto de Gasperi, an immigrant of Peru, in Camaso Jewelry of Lima at the behest of CONMEBOL. The top of the laurel is made of sterling silver, with the exception of the football player at the top. The pedestal, which contains badges from every winner of the competition, is made of hardwood plywood. The badges provides the year of the edition, the full name of the winning club, the city that the club comes from and the nation. To the left of that information is the club logo. A club gets to keep the trophy indefinitely if they win 3 tournaments in a row. Today, the current trophy is the 3rd in the history of the competition. 2 clubs have kept the actual trophy after winning 3 in a row, Estudiantes after their 3rd consecutive win in 1970. They won a 4th in 2009. Independiente after their 3rd consecutive win, and 5th overall, in 1974. They have since won it twice more, in 1975 and 1984. Prize money. As of 2014, clubs in the Copa Libertadores received $250,000 for advancing into the second stage and $300,000 per home match in the group phase. That amount is derived from television rights and stadium advertising. The payment per home match increases to $550,000 in the round of 16. The prize money then increases as each quarter-finalist gets $650,000, $700,000 for each semi-finalist, $1 million for the runner-up, and $2,300,000 for the winner. Eliminated at the first stage, $300,000, advanced to the second stage, $250,000, second stage, $900,000, round of 16, $550,000, quarterfinals, $650,000, semi-finals, $700,000, losing finalist, $1 million, winning the final, $2,300,000. The club champion of the 2014 Copa Libertadores will be awarded with $5,350,000 in prize money. The top goal scorer of the tournament receives the Alberto Spencer Trophy and $30,000. The best player of the tournament receives the Premio Santander and $30,000. The Fair Play Trophy, sponsored by Samsung, and $50,000 will be awarded for the first time in 2011 to the team with the best discipline in each edition. Cultural impact. The Copa Libertadores remains an important goal for South Americans, a golden paradigm to the players and teams of the continent. The folklore, fanfare, and organization of many competitions around the world owe its aspects to the Libertadores. El Sui plus or minus o Libertador. The Sui plus or minus o Libertador is a promotional Spanish phrase used in the context of winning or attempting to win the Copa Libertadores. Thus, when a team gets eliminated from the competition, it is said that the team has awakened from the liberator dream. The project normally starts after the club win one's national league, and the clubs usually spend large sums of money to win the Copa Libertadores. In 1998, for example, Vasco da Gama spent $10 million to win the competition, and in 1998, Palmeiras, managed by Luis Felipe Scolari, brought Janiel Baiano among other players, and successfully won the 1999 Copa Libertadores. The tournament is highly regarded among its participants. In 2010, players from Guadalajara stated that they would rather play the Copa Libertadores final rather than appear on a friendly against Spain, the reigning FIFA World Cup holders who are playing with their best side, and dispute their own national league. Players from Santos FC have stated, after their triumph in the 2010 Copa do Brasil, that they would rather stay in the club and participate in the 2011 Copa Libertadores, despite having multi-million-dollar contracts lining up for them from clubs participating in the UEFA Champions League, such as Chelsea of England and Lyon of France. Oscar Cordoba has stated that the Copa Libertadores was the most important trophy he attained. Echo, winner of 2 UEFA Champions League medals with FC Porto and FC Barcelona 2004 and 2006, respectively, stated he would exchange those 2 victories for a Copa Libertadores triumph. La Copa se mira y no se toca. Since its inception in 1960, the Copa Libertadores had predominantly been passed around clubs from nations with an Atlantic coast, Argentina, Brazil and Uruguay. Olimpia Asuncia Cubden of Paraguay became the first team outside of those nations to win the Copa Libertadores when they triumphed in 1979. The first club from a country with a Pacific coast to reach a final was Universitario of Lima, Peru, who lost in 1972 against Independiente of Argentina. The following year, Independiente defeated Colo-Colo of Chile, another Pacific team, creating the myth that the trophy would never go to the West, giving birth to the saying, La Copa se mira y no se toca. Unia Cube Denispa plus or minus Ola became the third Pacific team to reach the final in 1975, although they also lost to Independiente. Atlético Nacional of Medellín N, Colombia, won the Copa Libertadores in 1989, becoming the first nation with a Pacific coastline to win the tournament, although Medellín is the capital of the Antioquia department, whose coastline is entirely on the Atlantic via the Caribbean Sea. Other clubs from nations with Pacific coastlines to have won the competition are Colo-Colo in 1991, Once Caldas of Colombia in 2004, and LDU Quito of Ecuador in 2008. Sponsorship. Like the FIFA World Cup, nowadays the Copa Libertadores is sponsored by a group of multinational corporations. But unlike the Premier Football tournament aforementioned, the competition uses a single, main sponsor. It is currently primarily sponsored by Bridgestone Corporation, a multinational auto and truck parts manufacturer founded in 1931 by Shujiro Ishibashi in the city of Kobe, Fukuoka, Japan. The name Bridgestone comes from a calque translation and transposition of Ishibashi, meaning stone bridge in Japanese. The deal, running for a period of 5 years, began with the 2012 edition. As the main sponsor of the tournament, the competition will carry the name of the auto manufacturer corporation. Thus, the competition is known officially as the Copa Bridgestone Libertadores. The first major sponsor was Toyota Motor Corporation, a Japanese multinational automaker headquartered in Toyota, Aichi, Japan, who signed a 10-year contract with CONMEBOL in 1997. The second major sponsor was Banco Santander, who signed a 5-year contract with CONMEBOL in 2008. Banco Santander is a Spanish banking group centered on Banco Santander, USA and one of the largest banks in the world in terms of market capitalization. It originated in Santander, Cantabria, Spain. However, the competition has had many secondary sponsors that invest in the tournament as well. Many of these sponsors are nationally based but have expanded to other nations. Nike supplies the official match ball, as they do for all other CONMEBOL competitions. Konami's Pro Evolution Soccer is also a secondary sponsor as the official Copa Libertadores video game. This is the first time that the competition is being featured on a video game. Individual clubs may wear jerseys with advertising, even if such sponsors conflict with those of the Copa Libertadores. The tournament's current secondary sponsors and brands advertised are Ambassador, Pella Copyright, widely regarded among football historians, former players and fans to be one of the best and most accomplished footballers in the game's history, is the ambassador of the Copa Libertadores, having won it with Santos twice. In 1999, he was voted as the Football Player of the Century by the IFFHS International Federation of Football History and Statistics. In the same year, French weekly magazine France Football consulted their former Ballon d'Or winners to elect the Football Player of the Century. Pella Copyright came in first position. In 1999, the International Olympic Committee named Pella Copyright the Athlete of the Century. In his career he scored 760 official goals, 541 in league championships, making him the top scorer of all time. In total, Pella Copyright scored 1281 goals in 1363 games. In his native Brazil, Pella Copyright is hailed as a national hero. He is known for his accomplishments and contributions to the game of football. He is also acknowledged for his vocal support of policies to improve the social conditions of the poor. During his career, he became known as the King. Media coverage. The tournament attracts television audiences beyond South America. The matches are broadcast in over 135 countries, with commentaries in more than 30 languages, and it is often considered as one of the most watched sports events on TV. Fox Sports and La Shinoma Copyright Rica, for example, reaches more than 25 million households in the American continent alone. The 2009 edition saw over 1 billion television spectators in total tune in for the competition. Torneos Y Competencias is a secondary sponsor that sponsors the television broadcasts of the Copa Libertadores. Setanta Sports Australia broadcasts live Copa Libertadores matches in Australia. Match ball. The current match ball for the Copa Libertadores is named the Total 90 Libertadores, manufactured by Nike. It is one of the many balls produced by the American sports equipment maker for CONMEBOL, replacing the Mercurial Veloci Hybris in 2009. The ball, approved by FIFA and weighing approximately 422 g, has a spherical shape that allows the ball to fly faster, further, and more accurately. According to Nike, the ball's geometric precision distributes pressure evenly across panels and around the ball. The compressed polyethylene layer stores energy from impact and releases it at launch, and the six-wing carbon latex air chamber improves acceleration. Another feature of the ball is its rubber layer. It was designed to allow a better response while retaining the impact energy and releases it in the coup. Its support material of cross-linked nitrogen expanded foam improves its retention and durability of its shape. Polyester support fabric enhances structure and stability. The asymmetrical high-contrast graphic around the ball creates an optimal flicker as the ball rotates for a more powerful visual signal, allowing the player to more easily identify and track the ball. Official Anthem. The official anthem of the Copa Libertadores is a section of Ludwig van Beethoven's Symphony No. 9 in D minor, Op. 125 choral. The famous choral finale is Beethoven's musical representation of universal brotherhood. The piece is a non-literal adaptation of Und die Freude by Friedrich Schiller, who Beethoven admired. The anthem's chorus is played before the beginning and the end of television broadcasts of the matches in the Copa Libertadores. The piece is also played during the draw of teams at the beginning of each edition. It is also played during the awarding ceremony. Records and statistics. Winning clubs. By country, top scorers. Most appearances, see also, Football Continental Championships, references. Further reading, Goldblatt, David Goldblatt. The Ball is Round, A Global History of Soccer. Penguin Group. ISBN A1-59448-296-9. Jozsa, Frank. Global Sports, Cultures, Markets and Organizations. World Scientific. ISBN A981-283-569-5. Barraza, Jorge. Copa Libertadores de América Copyright Rica, 30 or plus or minus Os. Confederação Cubana Sudamericana de Futebol A, Napoleão Pondo, Antonio Carlos O Brasil na Tour Section A Libertadores da América Copyright Rica. Moad Editora Ltda. ISBN A85-7478-001-4. External links. CONMEBOL.com Official site of CONMEBOL. Futbol Santander official sponsor of the Copa Libertadores de América Copyright Rica. Copa Libertadores at Fox Sports and Spar plus or minus all, Copa Libertadores at ESPN, Copa Libertadores at Goal, Copa Libertadores at Univision, Copa Libertadores at Fox Soccer, Copa Libertadores results at rssf.com, Copa Libertadores at worldfootball.net, Copa Libertadores at southamericanfootball.com.